Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Real Estate Unlocked, Episode 2. I'm Andy Camp, your host today, and we have an exciting topic. We're going to take a little bit of a different take and approach on the hottest topic in real estate, really the hottest topic in the world right now, which is AI. But before we get started, I want to introduce my guest today, our very own Chief Marketing Officer, Ryan Maurer. Welcome.
Thank
Ready
you.
to have a little fun?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm excited. It'll be a good time.
So before we dig into all of Consulting Group 1000 Watts, fresh off the press research about AI and how our consumers are using it, I did want to give just a little bit of feedback. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad everybody enjoyed episode 1 with George Pattison and I talking about exclusive listings. If we want to talk about like immediately putting things to work, right. We saw a 82% increase in the month after the podcast of exclusive listings being put to work. And I'm happy to say that we actually got 6 under contract in the last 30 days. So thank you guys for taking George's advice and just putting one of your listings in. This is going to become more and more important because we're going to see a sharp uptick of listings over the next couple of weeks. Talking with people at our awards events, talking with people at other realtor events, we are starting to see that spring swing. So let's try the Cutler exclusives. But thank you guys for so much feedback. And we're going to use the next 30 days moving into March to really outline and dial in our content and communication strategy for 2026. We're going to continue with the podcast, but we're going to introduce some short form podcasts that are going to be recorded. And we're also going to bring back a shorter, more condensed version of our company-wide sales meeting. That was one big piece of feedback that I heard loud and clear, that everybody likes a different version, but some company-wide sales meeting to be incorporated in our monthly communication. So stay tuned to that. So you ready to talk about AI?
Without further ado, let's talk about AI. So so let's lead in. So you kind of talked about it, 1000 watt.
Yes.
Many of the listeners maybe have heard that, maybe they haven't, right? 1000 watt is a remarkable partner of ours. They do a ton of data research. They do a ton of surveying. They do a ton of different, of things that they give back to their partners, right? And this was a big one. This topic, I mean, this made a whole lot of sense. They surveyed 1,500 different people, so not in our industry.
So right? Just a little bit of background. So 1000 Watt has been a partner. They are the leading voice in consumer research, marketing, and branding in the real estate space. Yes. And they completed a consumer survey in 2025, in December of 2025, where they went in and they looked at 1,500 consumers. Now, these are people that had recently, within the last 90 days, either listed a home that sold or purchased a home. This is not realtors. This is not service providers. This is real estate consumers. And the ages range from 25 to 70 years old. So it's a great segmentation in terms of cross-generational trends. And what is the most interesting is loud and clear, 1000 Watts research has told us that our clients have 2 agents now. You as the realtor and the AI bot that they're using.
Which is just incredible, right? Like, what we want to get across today is really talk about, the data. That's what we want to present to you guys. This is what we came back with. And, the data came back, the results came back, and half the people are utilizing AI in one way, shape, or form on the buy side and the sell side.
And what's interesting is all the things that we're going to talk about today. And I know people have a ton of questions about AI. And the one thing I would ask everybody that's listening to the podcast today, be brave with your questions, because there's really nobody that's an expert, because nobody knows what's going to come next. This is machine learning. This is, and all of the AI platforms are really being prompted by the users that are putting information and seeking information for the AI bots to go and find. So be brave with your questions. And this is actually one of the ways that consumers are using AI. We'll talk a little bit about how they use AI to ask questions that they're uncomfortable to ask their realtor, which is something that I think should be an aha moment. But most importantly, I think we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, if we're nervous about AI, if we're nervous about being replaced or how this is going to marginalize what we do, please, please, please ask questions, because the biggest thing that I want you all to take away from this information and the follow-up conversations that we're going to have is that AI is a tool just like anything else, and if used properly, it's going to enhance our relationships with our clients as opposed to replace our relationships with our clients.
Yeah, so what we're going to present today isn't trying to scare you. It isn't trying any sort of fear factor. It isn't about just the hype surrounding AI. We really just want to present the data, the raw data, directly to you guys, how we got it, and kind of talk through it.
Yeah, and start forming some conclusions and start conversations.
Yeah.
So let's jump in.
All right.
So segment number 1, AI is already in the room with us. So, looking at the research, 2/3 of AI users have used AI to find and evaluate the quality of agents. Okay, so
Yeah, let's pause here a second.
so
Right, this is a
that
big deal.
statement in and of itself. So 2/3, 7 years or 66% of consumers utilize AI in some way, shape, or form to find a realtor and to evaluate whether that realtor is the high enough quality or what they're looking for. Now, there's two takeaways for me, and some of you are probably already putting into an AI chatbot, okay, who's the top producer in Canton, Ohio, and German Village, even putting yourself into one of the AI modals. And that's great. But it is really the Wild West right now. And the biggest concern, but also the biggest opportunity is to start becoming a subject matter expert.
Correct. I think, people are in up till this AI bubble is kind of starting to burst. And again, we are at the infancy stages of this. They had some ways to look you up. They had reviews, right? We as an industry leaned on reviews for many, many years. Well, that is changing very quickly, and actually has already changed. So there's lots of different ways, and we'll get into this. How to kind of control these LLMs, these the Chat GPTs, the Geminis of the world, and so many, and and how you are presented as a business professional. We'll get into all that, but again, just going back to they are using it to do the research like they've never had access before.
So let me ask you this, Ryan.
Yeah.
The immediate reaction when I hear, oh, well, 2/3 of consumers use AI for search for an agent. What's a very ninja way to combat maybe us not ranking or not coming up in an AI search?
And not coming up in AI search.
We didn't rehearse this question, but I want to put you on the spot. What's an analog and very ninja way to combat the fear of us not showing up when our name is typed in, or when a consumer types in top producers in Canton, Ohio?
Well, I think I think a lot of this goes back to the relationship marketing, in the what we do, what we teach, what our culture is, and through the personal notes, through the relationship. We're not a transactional brokerage. We don't coach to that. We don't teach to that. So there are so many ways to combat AI. As far as the search goes, again, it goes back to what I kind of just said. It's not this isn't a scare tactic kind of idea, kind of mindset, right? Good agents are always that are doing the things that they've done are going to continue to thrive and do business the way they've always done it. You brought it up earlier. It is a tool, and used properly, talked about, asked the right questions. It can very much enhance your day-to-day. It can enhance your client relationships. I use it from a marketing side. Obviously, my team uses it. It's got a ton of pros, but we just need to be aware and not blindly accept it as the norm.
Well, and the thing that occurs to me too, you talked about relationship management and being in relationships, and this is one of those things where being in flow with your clients really is been more important than ever. Because, and you've heard me say this before, how do you become undisruptible? Well, you are constantly in contact with your clients. You're constantly connected with your clients. We're going to talk about the 3 core competencies that we talked way back during the lawsuit settlements and the change in brokerage commissions and stuff. But the bottom line is, if you're not connected with your clients, then you don't know what that search result's going to say in those AI platforms.
Yeah, I mean, you can put in, if we're not strong as an industry, as independent contractors, we're not all content creators. We're not the best content creators, right? We're not bloggers. That's not what we do best, right? So to expect you guys as agents, even at the top of your game, to suddenly become these bloggers and content producers is just not reality. So again, these are ways that we can differentiate. These are ways that we can lean into AI to help grow those parts of our business.
So with this first segment, knowing that AI is already involved in the transaction even before you receive a phone call from a potential client, one of the questions that I would ask you and challenge you with is, if somebody puts your name into ChatGPT, what would it say? What search results would come back? And what kind of positioning do you think that you would have, in that exercise? No right or wrong answers. Once again, this isn't fear, this is clarity. Yeah. We have to understand the dynamics that are happening with our clients so we can position ourselves as the local experts so we can serve them the best we can.
Yeah.
All right, section 2. Clients are asking AI the questions they won't ask you. This was a huge aha for me in reading over this research. This doesn't ever really occur to me. We talk about being trusted advisors. We talk about, and spend so much time talking about listing consultations and buyer consultations. And, even among the best of us, we're probably not setting the clients up to be comfortable and feel safe in asking us some uncomfortable questions, or maybe some questions that they just, are embarrassed to ask because they feel like they should probably know the answer. One of the most eye-opening parts of the research is 45% of AI users asked questions they felt uncomfortable asking their agent. Now think about that. Almost half of the clients surveyed, almost half asked AI questions that they felt uncomfortable asking their agent. So that's a huge opportunity. You can look at it as a challenge. You can look at it as a gulf between consumer expectations and the results that are being delivered. I see it as a huge opportunity because we can bridge that gap in some very, very simple ways.
And it comes back to being the knowledge broker. It comes back to being the knowledge, agent, right? Like, in giving them a safe space to have those conversations. I mean, Andy jokes he has a crystal ball. It's got a little crack in it, but he's got a little crystal ball, right? You can speculate what they might be wanting, what they might be confused about, the questions they might have. But if you're not providing them in really engaging with them and giving them that safe space to ask those questions, where are they going to go? They're going to go to AI. They're going to go to, anybody but their trusted advisor. And you are positioning yourselves as their trusted advisor. That's where you need to remain, and that's where you need to stay.
Well, and, one of the things as I was kind of digesting the research and thinking about being that trusted advisor, and we've talked a little bit about this, but looking at an improving market in 2026, looking at the transaction sides, increasing, the need as a trusted advisor to slow things down. And if we slow things down, we're going to have the opportunity to create clarity for our clients. If they have clarity in the process, if they understand, and we are walking them through all aspects of the process, not in the middle of multiple offer situations, but at the beginning of the process, way upstream, and act as that fiduciary and that trusted advisor, we're going to create clarity, which is going to establish that trust, so they feel comfortable asking questions and having that feedback loop throughout the transaction.
Yeah, we're going to say clarity a lot, and we're not going to apologize for it. But
well, and I will tell you, and I'm using clarity for a very specific reason, because in spite of AI's power, AI is creating anything but clarity unless you have the kind of prompts and the kind of motivation to get to the bottom. But most of those are already preconceived notions that you're going for. AI does not provide clarity any more than the internet provided clarity. What provides clarity is a trusted advisor that lays out and prepares the client, whether it's the buyer or seller, so that they feel comfortable that they're in a safe space, they have somebody that they trust, that they are moving forward and asking questions. At that point, then AI is just going to enhance that business relationship as opposed to replace it.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Clarity.
Segment three of the research. This is a huge opportunity if we take it. AI raises the bar. Good is no longer enough. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this gets into a lot of things. This is into, broker provided things like systems and training and coaching and mentoring programs, prop tech, all of that kind of stuff. You and I talked about it earlier, going deep, not wide. Like, what does that mean? We all, going wide. The spray and pray method, right? There's, you take content and you just blast things out, right? This could be, from social media platforms. This could be from
Direct
print marketing.
mail. Yeah.
I mean, so much of it, right? But going deep with your clients, going deep with your brand, going deep with your story. We led into storytelling. We're going to continue to talk about storytelling, and give examples of best practices, how to do that, how to continue to do that. But putting, going deep and really investing in the right content, the right things, being nimble, being able to pivot when need be, and then rinse and repeat a lot of that content. And that's where your story comes. That's where your story starts to be told. That's where your story, that's where, brand starts happening, right? When people are, what is brand, right? What people are saying when you're not in the room. And that's where that really starts coming into play.
Well, the idea of just being good enough, you look at what AI allows you to do. And I know, I would say the majority of people watching the podcast today, the majority of our industry is not good at consistency. And you've heard me say, we were joking about Cutlerisms and we should just, write them down and talk about them. One of my Cutlerisms is big doors swing on small hinges. That getting comfortable with the process and letting go of the outcome is a huge takeaway from, segment three of this research. Because, when you think about going deep with AI, you can take one concept, and I would challenge everybody on the call, on the podcast today, to just do a debrief of your last transaction. And what I mean by debrief is talk about the clients. You can do a video recording, you can do a voice memo, you can type it out, but just do a debrief and get as much detail as possible, including some difficult moments, those kinds of things. But then take that debrief and put it into, let's say, ChatGPT, and then ask for ChatGPT to use that information and tell a story that your clients were the heroes and you were the guide. And see what comes up and read it and see if it resonates with you. That's what we mean. Before, when we were talking about content generation, we were talking about video, we were talking about, video for Instagram, social media, property videos, all these things. And it usually scares most people to death because they're not comfortable. It's scary. It's unknown. It's so easy to be a market expert, to elevate your profession. And one of the things that occurs to me is the idea of don't tell me, show me. Well, this concept and this reaction to the research and what consumers are looking for is they're looking for realtors that are showing that they're the market expert rather than telling that story through social media.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I mean, the more people start utilizing AI and using it for content creation, using it for video scripts, and not pouring any of their own experiences or their brand or their voice or their client, stories into it, the more it's just the same idea of that, snake eating its own tail, right? We're just going to end up going around and round and round, and there's really no new creative. There's really no new content coming out. And we all have this. We have amazing stories. We have amazing brands, under the Cutler umbrella that, you guys can get out and tell and talk about. And that's what's going to resonate. That's what's always resonated with people.
So it kind of flips the script because we talk a lot about, from a fiduciary standpoint, that we should always put our clients' needs first. But you have to ask yourself and challenge yourself, for those of you that are doing marketing, Are you putting your clients first in your marketing, or are you putting you first in your marketing? It's an interesting concept, but clearly the feedback that 1,000 watts research has shown is the clients are looking for the focus to be on them. And I think that's going to help us have the mindset in our marketing, in our approach to real estate, of how do we position ourselves to be the local experts.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Segment 4.
Ooh,
This is a good one.
this is.
Where agents still win, high stakes decisions. And I think this is great. You know, the good news is we're far from being irrelevant in the transaction. You know, one of the things that we have to come to an understanding on, and this is where AI becomes less of a marketing tool and more of a tool for us to build relationships, is that AI cannot replace creativity. AI cannot replace empathy. And we are in the business in single family residential of a highly emotional, infrequent transaction. And I think this is the biggest takeaway. This is the gulf between technology and humanity that we are perfectly positioned to fill.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you said it, and I want to just kind of hit on it. You know, again, the research came back, and I'll just read it. You know, clients draw very clear boundaries around AI. So from the people that 1,000 Watts surveyed, there are boundaries. That's the data that's coming back. They are not they love it, they use it, they can appreciate it, but there are limitations.
Yep.
They're not gonna let it do, you know, from the business side, from the negotiation side, and we'll get into that. There are clear boundaries, and that's good news.
Yeah. You know, clients said overwhelmingly they're uncomfortable relying on AI for negotiating legal documents, pricing decisions, and emotional reassurance. You know, emotional reassurance goes without saying, but what's interesting is when you go out and you look in the real estate world and you look at most property technology companies, they're building and touting AI-powered consumer-facing platforms, assuming that that's what the client wants. And clearly this research states the clients do not want to be responsible for their own legal document processing. The clients are not confident in AI leading the charge and walking through that. Certainly negotiating is a highly emotional and strategic approach that AI does not have the empathy or wherewithal to do. Maybe they will, maybe it will someday, maybe it will create enough machine learning 10, 20, 30 years from now. But right now, clients are very uncomfortable with the areas that we can reinforce.
Same with pricing. I mean, that's always a big one. It's pricing, and they're still not there with that. They understand that takes a human, that takes a relationship, that takes a person.
Well, and it's funny with this feedback because you made me think about all the talk, and we kind of got quiet about this, that we need to revisit this. You know, what are the 3 core competencies of a realtor articulating your value? Being a trusted advisor, an expert facilitator, and a skilled negotiator. You can rinse and repeat in any order, but those are the 3: trusted advisor, expert facilitator, skilled negotiator. And so we talked about that 4 years ago in terms of articulating our value in the transaction when we are talking about commission. Well, now we have to also articulate our value knowing that AI is heavily used in real estate transactions. But each one of those 3 core competencies, if we lean into those and we get really good at it and we embrace it, are exactly the 3 main core competencies that consumers are using, that they know and are comfortable seeking that from AI.
Yeah, because you guys are in place and the agents are in place to protect them. I mean, it talks about it, you know, and talks about it in the research. AI does help prepare them to some degree, right? You know, even if they bought or sold, you know, before, there's a lot of different nuances and stuff like that. Trying, looking up the right agent, it can prepare them, help prepare them, but the data still shows that the agent is that firewall of protection. And I think that's important.
Well, you think about, things like judgment, timing, follow-up, understanding the nuances, understanding position, understanding communication. I use the word empathy. I mean, that all is part and parcel to what we do. Now, that can be a heavy burden sometimes. Let's face it. That's why we earn what we do in this business, because we do get the opportunity and privilege as one of our fiduciary responsibilities to navigate those emotions. But we should lean into, even though it's a heavy burden to bear sometimes, we should lean into that because that clearly is a line that consumers understand they can't seek AI to replace what we do.
Yeah, agents are still indispensable. I
Yep.
mean, that's that kind of sums it up. You know, you guys are still indispensable during that transaction, no matter what anyone's heard out there.
So key takeaway from segment 4, let's revisit and lean into the core competencies of being a trusted advisor, a skilled negotiator, and an expert facilitator.
Yep.
Segment 5, pricing is the battleground. This is going to be a good one, and I guarantee you this research says we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable in a key part of what we do for consumers. So the takeaway that 1000 Watt talked about with this is when it comes to pricing, show your work.
Yeah.
Our approach to pricing as an expert facilitator and a trusted advisor, we need to show why we're different than Zillow, than Redfin, than all these other automated value models that AI trends towards, because it's easy for them to get information not knowing what the accuracy is.
Right, and again, when we actually were provided some sample language and some things like that, we will share with you guys along with a lot of with the rest of this content as well. Yeah, but you're right. It's just it's.
Well, it's funny. I mean, so you talk about clarity, and we've talked about it for years. Clarity creates calm. Calm is contagious. It's the number one, pricing is the number one area in a real estate transactions that consumers want clarity. They come into that first meeting probably having already looked at hundreds of homes on Zillow or hundreds of homes on Redfin. They understand, or at least they understand what's being fed to them on those platforms, what the pricing is or isn't. Homeowners that have been considering listing their home have probably started looking at pricing. If we're in flow with them, we've been already giving them their market reports and their market updates, or maybe we've done a real estate review for them. Yeah. But in the absence of us being connected and being that trusted advisor, they've probably looked at their home's estimate and probably are either overly excited or somewhat disappointed in what
we all know that even our own content, right? It's that 30,000 foot view, right? That's what the market watch is. That's what I mean, everyone's got a what's my home worth, from the Zillows to every independent broker website has one, right? So yeah, to your point, they've done it. Now, what information they have is, varies, greatly, but that's where you guys come in as that trusted advisor.
Well, but we all know that, and you've heard us say it for years, headlines terrify, don't clarify. We're trying to create clarity. In the absence of good information, consumers tend to go trend to find information that reinforces their conclusions, their standpoint. If they find a Zestimate online and it says that their home is worth $200,000 or $300,000 more than what's going on in the neighborhood, they're going to be excited about it. The worst thing that we can do is avoid that fact, though. Once again, these are automated valuation models that AI is trending towards and using to provide information and sourcing for pricing conversations. So, going back and looking at, those conversations, I understand Zillow's estimate is at this point, but you have to understand I take a different approach, and here's how. Yeah. And so when I say, all right, so what makes a great salesperson? Well, 90% of us hate math because we're a DI personality in most cases. Typically, we're not analytical. For those analytical folks that are successful in real estate, guess what? It's your time to shine because the consumer wants to see your math. They want to see your process. So once again, going back, I talked about it a little earlier, focusing on the process and detaching from the outcome. We have to be trusted advisors rather than transactionally minded to position ourselves as local experts differently than how AI may be positioning agents online in AI models. So this was a really interesting takeaway. I love this sample language. This was from 1000 Watt. Once again, this is all going to be part of our follow-up, but Zillow shows X amount for your home's worth. This is how they missed the mark. And here's how I arrived to why. It's not about defending price. It's about demonstrating judgment and a bona fide pricing strategy that's helped hundreds and hundreds of clients be successful when working with me. I love that. Now you can put in the blanks. We can produce that script. If you have had 5 clients that have been successful in working with you, you put that in there. But it's about not avoiding the question. It's about leaning into our expertise and positioning it, because in those moments face to face with clients, guess what AI can't do? They can't defend their position.
No.
They're not in the room. They're not creating rapport. They don't build trust. They're not creating clarity. That's what we do.
Exactly. So that's a great segue. So segment 6, transparency builds trust, right? And I just want to read this. Most consumers want agents to proactively explain how they're utilizing AI and not hide from it. Don't oversell it, but explain it. So this is something we've been working on, and this is something that we're gonna get out to you guys here in the next week. Information on how you're utilizing AI. And yes, there will be, it's built into our tech platform, right? It's built into our tech, what we call our tech stack, right? What the broker provides to you guys, all the AI that's interweaved into Delta and everything else with our social studio and create and all that kind of stuff, right? Like that's all built in, but they want you to be able to explain it and not hide from it. And I think it's going to be important that they understand how you guys are utilizing it during the transaction. And I think just as important, it's going to be, you guys are going to need to explain how you're not using it, what you're not using it on. And I think we've really hit a sweet spot in simplifying that down for the consumer, for the AI consumer that does want to have some information. Again, I don't think they want you to go too deep into, your whole, social media, AI driven marketing efforts and all of this, but I think they need to know something. And I think showing both sides of that is going to be really, really important.
Yeah. It's so interesting how quickly transparency has become important with AI. In the last 12 months, AI has kind of come on the scene by storm. And now most consumers are getting a little AI fatigue. And the perfect example of this was Sunday during the Super Bowl. Talking about and having so many AI generated images during the Super Bowl, it's very interesting because opportunistically you saw even the production from the NFL and some advertising firms heavily leveraging AI because it streamlines the timeline turnaround, but it also cuts costs.
Yeah.
But it also creates fatigue. And I think, I love what Ryan just said. I love the idea of let's talk about what we don't use AI for. In terms of our price opinions, in terms of, our approach to gathering information, all the things that position us as experts, we have to talk about why it's important that in some cases, a human being doing this approach and looking at multiple data points to get the nuance of a neighborhood or the nuance of, this area versus that area. It's really, really important to not just talk the hype, but maybe minimize the hype a little bit. Recognizing that we probably don't need to see any more AI generated videos with realtors. And please, we're going to talk a lot about this on a follow-up. Yeah. Don't take the cartoon realtor test that most AI models are
the biggest data grab since 2026.
Please don't do that. But looking at transparency and futuristically, we see AI as a way to smooth out the rough edges for our realtors and our staff in transactions from a compliance standpoint, from a transaction management standpoint. So do we do that because we want to replace staff and agents? No, we do that because we want to free up our staff and our agents to spend more time with their clients, to create a better customer service, better hospitality experience. That I feel in real estate, forget about the marketing and all the rest of it. I think that the ability for us to spend more time creating a more special, more hospitality focused experience for our clients is the true power of AI and brokerage.
Right. So you at no point in the future you're going to hear me start talking about everybody should be getting an AI assistant, answering their phones and setting their appointments. I get it, right? There are things that it's going to be able to take off your plate, and we're going to continue to talk about those things, and we're going to continue to advise and coach and train and help guide as all of this is coming out. I mean, none of us are experts in this field. We're all being self-taught along the way. And and it is as exciting as it is. Sometimes you just gotta kind of make sure your feet are planted. I know you kind of led into the funny little cartoon thing that, okay, I'll jump on board. Well, a lot of this, what we're talking about today, is just we want to get you thinking. Not saying you can't do something, but understand, if I do X, I have to provide this data, this information, this personal information to make something work. If that's something you're comfortable doing in your life and your business, that's fine, but we just want to get you thinking.
And it's a good point too. None of us are experts in AI, but you should have a clear vision of how AI is going to be incorporated into your business. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great way to frame it. I have a clear vision of me as the president of Cutler Real Estate, how I want to leverage AI to create a better hospitality experience for our realtors and for our clients. Individually, even if AI scares you to death, you should have an idea of what role it's going to take in your business. If you want to completely avoid AI and your niche is focused on more of a hands-on approach, what are one or two little things that you can do just to leverage AI just a little bit and incorporating that conversation, knowing that in this research, so many consumers are utilizing it as a tool, so you don't inadvertently position yourself as someone who isn't an expert or someone who's behind the times and the trends.
Yeah, and I think it was I'll read this. Used well, AI enhances professionalism. Used poorly, it erodes trust.
Yep.
And I think that really
that's a great way to say that again.
Yes. Used well, AI enhances professionalism. Used poorly, it erodes trust. And I think we just need to kind of just sit on that, right? And really understand that. So again, we're excited. We've got some great content that we've been working on in the background. Different pieces that you guys can utilize into your business, into your pitch books, into your buyer consults, your listing presentations. That's going to kind of speak into everything that we've kind of discussed over the last couple of minutes.
So we're coming up on a 45-hour mark. One of the other pieces of feedback that we got is last podcast was just a little too long, so we want to try to keep it to 45 minutes. So what are some key takeaways from today? Well, number one, in an AI-informed market, trust still comes from people. And I think you go back to not leveraging AI, not talking about AI. It can erode trust inadvertently. So we still are the ones that are the trusted advisors. We still, and that's a great way to frame it. Going back to the core competencies, that is a great way for you to take that exercise, take the information today, incorporating the stuff that we're going to send you as a follow-up and applying it to those three core competencies. How can AI help me and enhance those? And how is it going to rely solely on me in spite of AI being in the informed market? It wouldn't be a podcast without a fire engine. Right on cue. Takeaway number two, clients draw very clear boundaries around AI. We talked about this. They're uncomfortable relying on AI for negotiations, legal documents, pricing decisions, and emotional reassurance. That emotional empathy, that is one of those things that is a tremendous way for us, if communicated properly, if the expectations are set properly, a real win for us to be and establish that trusted advisor positioning.
Yeah, and again, we hit on that as a takeaway, as a good news takeaway, right? You guys are still positioned where you need to be as the most trusted person in the room. So for anyone that has this little thing, person on the shoulder, or has this thing in the background that AI is gonna ever replace, it's not happening, guys. You are still the most important person in the room.
I love this concept. AI prepares clients. realtors protect clients. You know, and I think that that is a great way to sum up what it means to be a trusted advisor, a skilled negotiator, and an expert facilitator. It is our job to protect their interests. AI may prepare them. It may get to the point where they're an informed consumer. It's our job to protect them.
Correct.
Takeaway number 3. One of the most eye-opening insights from the research that we discussed today, 45% of AI users asked questions they felt uncomfortable asking their agent.
That's a big one.
It is
It's
a huge
still
one.
a big one.
So going back to that concept of just going to your last transaction and doing a debrief. When you're doing that exercise, what I would encourage everybody to do is to be honest. You don't have to share it, but be honest with yourselves. Were there times that there were some uncomfortable questions, maybe a strain or a disagreement within that transaction that could have been overcome if we set the stage at the beginning of the transaction during that consultative process to create that safe space, knowing that we don't want them seeking knowledge from AI because they're uncomfortable. That, once again, erodes trust.
Right. I mean, it's not that any of us should have a problem with them utilizing AI to ask questions, right? It's where the sting comes into play is it's because they're uncomfortable asking us.
Right. Within that research, most of the consumers said it wasn't because they didn't trust their agent. It was because they didn't want to appear uninformed.
Yes.
And so that's a big takeaway. This is such an infrequent transaction. Even if somebody has bought and sold several homes, so much has changed. The average period of time is 11 years now between buying and selling homes. So, of course they would be uninformed. That's where we need to help them feel comfortable asking questions, slowing the process down while we're being that trusted advisor.
So our position, I mean, we've kind of talked about it. The research doesn't say agents are becoming irrelevant. It says average agents are becoming easier to spot. Sometimes the truth hurts, right? If you're not continuing to sharpen your craft, mindset, skill set, action, you may become irrelevant, and that's just us being honest, right?
Well, and that's once again, if that scares you, if that is concerning to you, then that's a quiet conversation we need to have one-on-one with your manager, with me, with Ryan, with all of us, because we don't want anybody left behind. And things are moving so fast, it can feel like you're going to be left behind. I promise you that if you take action today, you focus on mindset, skill set, and action, and you practice real estate, that skill set part of things, all the things that we talked about today can be achieved with just those small tweaks in your approach to business, those small tweaks that are going to create major ripples of positivity in how you work with your buyers and sellers.
Yep. Well said. Well said.
So we're at the 45-minute mark. I hope you enjoyed the first of what I know will be a deep dive into how we position ourselves as local experts, knowing that AI is in the room. We are going to follow up not only with summaries of the market research, but we are also going to have a one-page tear sheet that you can incorporate into your buyer consultation and listing consultations as a reference guide, so that you can stay informed and we can continue to thrive together. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.